Relentless ally for anyone impacted by cancer, with free services provided online and in person, with their newest location in Massachusetts. Connect with Cancer Support Community Massachusetts for free emotional support, educational resources, patient navigation, financial counseling, and more. 617-797-3391. CancerSupportMass.org. CancerSupportMass.org.
The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor that provides investment advisory services. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else, and do not guarantee profit. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Paul Lane. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Paul Lane.
Chuck, Paul, and Ben with you here on a Consumer Price Index day. That's right. It is the CPI right now. And in terms of what we saw this morning, Paul, at 8:30 a.m., we did get CPI data, and it was pretty good. It came in at 0.2% for the month of July on the headline number. The core number, excluding food and fuel, came in at 0.2% as well. And so what this means is that if you look at the annualized numbers, which is what everyone, pays attention to because it's just kind of hard to feel the difference between 0.2 and 0.3% for the month, man. What we ended up seeing is that annually, the headline CPI decreased down to 2.9% from 3%. And the core CPI number decreased from 3.3% down to 3.2%. All of this being consistent with what you'd like to see on the inflation side if you are getting a soft landing.
Yeah, it's interesting, Chuck. Heading into this inflation report, Mike and I were talking about this on yesterday's show. It was probably the least concerned I've been about an inflation report. It seems as if it's significant.
Very mellow, man.
Very chill, very chill. It's just a nice summer August report that its significance compared to others that we covered and sort of were waiting on bated breath to be released, this one didn't have that feeling, at least to me heading into this. It seems like, and if you read all of the different Wall Street Journals and Bloombergs out there, etc., the focus is much more shifted now to the labor market. Certainly, it is reassuring to get these numbers coming in because if we were to see a significant uptick to inflation that would surprise on the upside, then that would be difficult from a Federal Reserve perspective ahead of their September meeting to balance the idea that, hey, perhaps we have a weakening labor market, but also inflation appears to be roaring its head. We did not get that data today. So that is good in itself. And it seems as if, in general, looking at all the components of CPI, many of them coming down to reasonable levels. So overall, a good report. I don't think there was as much concern heading into this, but certainly you're glad it didn't surprise to the upside.
So that's what we're seeing in terms of the big headline numbers. Other things that we pay attention to when we look under the surface. Hey, what's driving this drop in inflation? Is it just that, shelter costs came down and that's, such a big weight and that's what's happening here? No, it's not. In fact, the shelter inflation number for the month went back up to 0.4% for the month compared to the 0.2% that we saw print in June. So the shelter inflation number actually got worse, again, according to how they calculate it, which is, this hugely smoothed and lagged thing that does not actually represent how much you're spending on shelter this month. But what we saw, and this is data from Michael McDonough from Bloomberg, he's the chief economist in the financial products division at Bloomberg, and he pulled a data set this morning that showed look, only 38% of CPI components are rising this month at a pace of 4% or more. And that is that's a meaningful improvement from where we were. Just to give some context on this, back at the end of Q1 when we were concerned about that potential for a rebound in inflation, over 65% of CPI components were registering more than 4% annualized increases. And really, for the last 2 years, 2.5, dating back to late 2021, you were between 55 and 75% of components on a monthly basis registering greater than 4% annualized bumps. You compare that to the pre-pandemic period, and generally, anywhere from about 20 to 30% of items had more than 4% bumps. So even during times when inflation was tame,
there's always going to be some.
You still had something that was,
changing,
going up in price because there's a bird flu and so eggs are through the roof, or there's a swine flu and so bacon's through the roof, or there's, OPEC production cuts and oil went up. These things are always, kind of moving here and there, but there was no conclusive trend in the overall inflation. So, or no conclusive uptick at least. So I think it's encouraging that it's not just one or two items that are, printing lower that are dragging the whole thing down, but rather you're seeing numbers as a whole improving and lower inflation numbers printing on a monthly basis. Remember, lower inflation numbers do not mean deflation, which is prices coming down. It just means that the rate of price increases is stabilizing at close to what it was pre-pandemic.
I like the way of looking at that as the collection of all the different items, because you can always pick out one item or another that could be concerning or favorable depending on which one you want to focus on. If you want it to be negative, you could highlight the concern about shelter increasing, but then if you want to tell the full picture, to the point I made earlier and why you brought up all the components, there are many other areas where we're not seeing pressure, and that's what inflation is all about. It's the basket, the price of all goods in the basket. It's not just looking at one particular component and pointing it out as a concern or something that is going to help in the future.
Exactly. I mean, look, because you could do that either way.
Yep.
You could look at motor vehicle insurance, which is still rising quickly at 0.9% for the month, and be like, very, very bad. Or you could take a look at outpatient hospital services, which prices were down 1.9% for the month. Again, how do they calculate any of this? I have no idea. Public transportation, airline fares down 7.1%. Oh, gee, the prices are really improving. Well, yeah, that's for airline fares, but if you want to take intra-city mass transit, well, those prices are up 0.5% for the month. So this is why you don't cherry pick one or two items. You look at the whole data set, and I do find that when you look at, kind of how things are distributed amongst it, that's what ultimately is in the driver's seat here as well. Other things that I want to talk about as it relates to this report. I want to talk a little bit about how this and how some of the other data is influencing what the Fed may or may not do. Because, Paul, we're only 9 days out from, or 9 days, away now from what had been, just this catastrophic crash in markets. The worst 3% down day in the history of the S&P 500, where, again, you've got really smart people that were just running around every financial media station out there saying the Fed's got to do emergency 75 basis point rate cuts. And here's where we are right now, because let's look at the data that we have.
To be clear, Chuck was being sarcastic about that market drop. Just if anyone,
our listeners know, they're in on the gig, they're in on the joke. Today, right now, inflation, it's better than it was before. Still running high 2s, low 3s. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good, but it's not. It's still not quite where you want it to be. Core inflation, same ballpark, high 2s, low 3s, like you're right around there. The S&P 500 right now is under 5% off its all-time high. It's like 4.5% from its all-time high. You've got, and again, we don't know exactly what GDP is going to be for this quarter. The next estimate of GDP now comes out tomorrow, but through August 8th, the estimate very early in the quarter was 2.9%. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you do not get 75 basis point emergency rate cuts with inflation running at 2.5% to 3% and GDP running at 2.5% and the S&P 500 less than 5% off its all-time highs.
It's not going to do it.
That doesn't happen. And this gets at, the crux of what a soft landing may be. And I'm not saying that we're getting the soft landing. I'm saying that when you are going through the soft landing, it's not something where you just ease down and say, that was a great landing. In economic terms, you kind of alternate between, hey, are we heading into recession or not? Mm-hmm. And it's that uncertainty because you have to actually land the economy. And by landing, really what we're talking about is inflation. If you don't land it, which happened last year, then okay, we do a go-around and now we've got to go through it again. You have to have these questions. In order to get the soft landing, you have to have the questions of, are we going into recession or not? And then inflation has to stay down while unemployment doesn't spike. We're now finally getting to the point where it's possible, but the next few months are going to determine whether it actually happens or not.
And it really comes down to the labor market at this point. Unless something, there's some sort of shock in the system that sends back up inflation in the other direction, it seems as if there's been good progress there and there's no real indications, right in our face that inflation is going to pick back up again. So that's why I had mentioned the point of, scrutinizing the labor market heading forward. It's
all going to be on the growth side because there's an economist from the University of Oregon, Tim Dewey, and he made this point on Twitter yesterday, which was, look, the calculus for the last year has been, effectively, we're going to let unemployment rise by 0.9% because it's worth it to have that happen in order to get inflation down into the twos. Mm-hmm. Are we going to let unemployment rise another 0.9% because we want to get inflation an additional 0.5% down from where it is? His point is probably not. The difference between an economy that is, 2.5% inflation and 5.5% unemployment is really different from, inflation's at 3 and unemployment's at 4.5. Yeah. You'd rather have the latter, all else being equal, because when unemployment goes up to 5.5, it rarely just stops there. Mm-hmm. And it also it doesn't, you don't need to lose that many more jobs for that small marginal benefit. The last year was, hey, we took inflation from 5% down to 3%, and it cost us 0.9% in unemployment to do so. That's the trade-off the Fed was willing to make. He's kind of saying they won't make that trade-off for the next 0.5% in unemployment because it's not worth losing another 1% to 2%. I'm sorry, 0.5% in inflation. It's not losing another 1% to 2% in unemployment.
Right.
Let's take a quick break here. When we come back, let's see. Should we talk recession and whether or not it's coming? Does that sound fun?
Let's do it.
Let's talk recession when we return.
Get up-to-the-minute market updates with Wall Street Watch, weekdays at 10:30, only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Summer in New England is spectacular. Winter in the U.S. Virgin Islands is even better. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John are 3 of the most incredible islands anywhere in the Caribbean, and their popularity has soared over the past 3 years. If you're ready for your next fabulous vacation, now's the time to check out the American Caribbean. Go to visitusvi.com, where you'll find all the information you need to book a trip that you'll never forget. The St. Croix Crucian Festival runs from December 26th to January 4th. Celebrate New Year's on St. Croix and enjoy world-class cuisine, pristine beaches, a wide variety of water sports, and some of the greatest musical acts the islands have to offer. Travel to and from New England is simple, and your stay will be hassle-free because this is the American Caribbean. There's no passport needed and no money to exchange. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Go to visitusvi.com and make your plans today. That's visitusvi.com.
Recent reports suggest that a record 4.1 million Americans may retire this year alone. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and if you're one of them, you'll want to have a retirement plan in place that focuses on several objectives. When to actually retire is a very important one to consider. Retiring early while giving you more time to enjoy life after work also means you'll need your money to last longer. Retiring later may not give you as much time to enjoy life's pleasures, but you'll have more time to save money. It's important for your retirement plan to strike strike a reasonable balance, and our new guide may help. It's called A Day in the Life of a Retiree, and it's yours free by calling 800-393-4001. The guide discusses these issues and more, so please call 800-393-4001. Once again, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Last year, we introduced you to Mark Vaughter, CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Mark is a career military man, and we're proud to have him back as the presenting sponsor of the 2024 DAV 5K Boston.
I am a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans, Department of Massachusetts. The DAV does incredible work, and it was one of the first organizations I became familiar with after my military service ended in 1984. As I built my company, Veterans Development Corporation, I did it knowing that I'd be giving back to fellow vets who need jobs, support services, medical supplies, and much more. I work with disabled veterans every day, and is one of the key reasons why I'm such a big supporter of Dan Stack and the Disabled American Veterans, Department of Massachusetts, in this year's DAV 5K Boston. Please join me in supporting this tremendous cause by taking part in this year's event or by making a donation to the DAV.
Veterans Development Corporation is proud to be the presenting sponsor of this year's DAV 5K, taking place on Saturday, November 9th at Fort Independence in South Boston. To register for this year's race, visit dav5k.boston.
Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and creating a trust is a great way to help. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law. Their brand new guide out this month is called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. There are many types of trusts to consider, but irrevocable trusts can establish the kinds of safeguards you'll need to protect your assets long term. Learn about how the trust can protect your assets from probate and potentially eliminate your estate taxes. If you're closing in on retirement and have an existing trust that needs a second look, or if you need a new trust to ensure that your assets are secured, call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and let them help you create a plan that gives you confidence in your financial future. That number again is 866-848-5699, or request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Miss any of the show? The Financial Exchange Show podcast is available on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. This year's race is Saturday, November 9th at Fort Independence on Castle Island, and registration is now open. Help us support these great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and registering for this year's race. Your gifts will support a wide variety of initiatives like the DAV Transportation Program, which takes disabled vets to important medical appointments that supply both the physical and mental care they need. For more information or to make a donation, visit dav5k.boston. The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation.
Let's talk a little bit about the possibility of a U.S. recession, which is all that anyone wants to talk about right now. I literally wake up and my mom texts me and goes, "Are we heading into a recession?" And I go, "Well, she didn't actually text me that, so I."
Shocking.
No, the texts from my mom are like, "Hey, can I have another picture of like my granddaughters?" And I'm like, "Okay, fine." Like I'm not going to call my mom out for something she didn't do.
Similar boat here.
But the point is, everyone wants to talk about, are we in recession right now? It's the only thing that people are focused on. And the CEO of UBS, who quite honestly didn't even know who it was until I read this piece. It's how little I think about UBS at this point, just because, again, they're not really consequential in terms of much of anything in U.S. banking these days. Mm-hmm. But their CEO said yesterday that, hey, it's too early to talk about a potential U.S. recession. It certainly is possible, but we're not necessarily there yet. And I give him credit for not going the Jamie Dimon route and saying, yes, we think we're heading into recession every fall for the last 3 years.
That's true. He has been very vocal about that.
Is there anything else to take from this? Does the CEO of UBS know anything that CEOs of other banks don't know?
No, absolutely not. But really, The bigger question that we should cover, because everyone does want to talk about it, is, what are the things that economists look at in terms of trying to get a gauge of whether or not we are heading into a recession? Some of the components that the National Bureau of Economic Research looks at when they're trying to determine, hey, where do we stand from an economic standpoint, include the labor market, which we talk about quite frequently, manufacturing, industrial production, consumption, GDP. Those are some of the factors that we look at when you're gauging a recession. I can highlight some that may indicate we are in a difficult position and may be slowing down, like, for example, the ISM Manufacturing Index, which is at a point at 46.8, which is gauged by 50 as sort of the round number. If you're over that, you're in an expansionary phase. As you're under that, you're in a contraction, just specific to manufacturing. So I could point to that and make the argument here, Chuck, that we're in this bad place. I can certainly talk about unemployment increasing. We talked about that in the first segment of the show. However, there are many other indicators out there. Looking at GDP now, we're tracking at close to 3% economic growth for Q3. There are other factors that would dispute that notion. So I think that's the context that we need to provide when we're looking at gauging out the likelihood of a recession going forward.
Yeah, and I think that ultimately, I think sometimes we forget what recession really means, because it's been almost 20 years since we've had a real one here in the United States. I say real, not that 2020 wasn't real, but it wasn't caused by the business cycle. And it was it was very short in duration. You blinked
your eye, it was over.
It was I think the NBER declared recession for a month. Yeah. I think it ended up being March of that year, and then the economy started expanding again. And so the last real recession that we had was 2008 through, I think it finally ended in early 2010. And it was the single largest recession in the last 100 years. It was a generational event. And I think sometimes we forget how much recessions suck, because the way that people talk about them is just, oh, it's a slowdown. And no, there are growth slowdowns that don't lead to recession. And those are kind of, yeah, you're fine. We muddle through and we come out the other side. Recessions do leave lasting scars on the economy in terms of lost output, lost wages, lost jobs, things that, affect people for years afterwards. It's not something that you just go through and say, well, we got through that and now everything's fine. Even a mild recession still has really meaningful job loss. I mean, in recessions, unemployment typically rises anywhere from 2 to 4%. At this level of, at this size of the workforce, you're talking between like 3 and 7 million people losing jobs on a net basis there.
I agree with that, though. I do feel as if the 2008 comparisons, or so many people have ingrained in their mind 2008 as a typical recession just because that's the last one they're familiar with.
Sure.
And I would compare it to hurricanes in a sense where there can be different categories where a Hurricane 5 like Katrina can leave long-lasting impacts that linger on for years and don't get resolved, or you can have one that's a 1 or 2 and it's sort of, hey, we got through it. And I'm not saying that recessions aren't something to be concerned about,
totally.
But the problem when you bring up recession is everyone thinks Category 5, 2008, basically.
It's interesting that you bring up the weather comparison, because you see a similar phenomenon amongst people who follow weather, where if a storm comes and it's not as big as people were expecting, that it's like they're disappointed. It's like, oh, that hurricane wasn't as big. And it's like, guys, there's actual people that live there that are having their homes destroyed. Like, don't root for the big one just because you want to see a big number on a screen.
Not to mention the economic impact of cleaning that stuff up, yeah.
Right. Likewise, with the economy, it seems like there are people who just, they root for disaster. And maybe it's just because they've been reading about disaster for so long. I don't know. But guys, you don't want economic disaster. It's not good for anyone when that happens. Let's take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Todd Lutsky for Ask Todd. We've also got Wall Street Watch coming up as well.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Discover the fish and farm market at the Boston Fish Pier. Open every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. in Boston Seaport. From fresh seafood to juicy tomatoes and sweet corn to grab-and-go options, indulge in the peak of summer's bounty. Support local farmers and enjoy the freshest ingredients all summer long. Sponsored by Mass Farmers Markets, a nonprofit dedicated to championing farmers markets across Massachusetts. Find a market near you at massfarmersmarkets.org.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
This Veterans Day weekend, help honor all who have served this country. Join us on Saturday, November 9th for the 9th Annual Disabled American Veterans 5K Boston. It's a run and walk to support the DAV Department of Massachusetts. Saturday, November 9th at DCR's Castle Island in South Boston. Together, let's honor all who have sacrificed for our freedom. Register or donate now at dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and irrevocable trusts can help you. Keep your assets safe from probate and the nursing home by calling Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699. Get their new guide called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. That's 866-848-5699, or request it online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women,
taking the lives of 1 in 3.
That's more than all forms of cancer combined.
For too long, heart disease and stroke have taken the lives of the women we love.
But we're not giving up because we have something better,
stronger, more powerful.
We have each other.
When we come together and go red,
the more power we have against our greatest health threat.
Visit GoRedForWomen.org today to learn more.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and our guide this month is titled A Day in the Life of a Retiree. Mike, one of the key focuses of this piece is about how to figure out how much income you actually need in retirement and where you start tapping assets from. How do you make those decisions?
Yeah, don't you hate the rules of thumb on this, right? Like, oh, I'm going to need 80% of what I had before. The answer is that there is no rule of thumb. There's no good one that you can use to figure out how much income you are going to need in retirement. Do you have a mortgage? What sort of travel are you planning to do? Yes, you won't be commuting as much. Maybe you and your spouse can go down to one car, but if all of a sudden your plan is to dramatically increase your travel budget, that changes everything.
And when you look at other things that can matter, it could be, where's your family located? Are you planning on moving somewhere else? Do you have grandkids that you want to spoil? These are all things that are going to play into that discussion of how much money you need to retire on.
Yeah, no doubt. And so it really does start right there with assessing your retirement ability. It's what type of income am I going to need in order to just be happy. It's not necessarily about maintaining lifestyle. It might be a different lifestyle once you're retired, but will I be content with it? And what sort of activities and lifestyle am I looking for once I am done with that 9 to 5, once I'm done putting in the hours for working and saving for my future?
Our guide this month is titled A Day in the Life of a Retiree. The way to request it is by calling 800-393-4001. Again, it's titled A Day in the Life of a Retiree, and you can request it by calling 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Time now for Wall Street Watch, a complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Markets are currently in slightly mixed territory, mostly down, except for the Dow Jones, which is up 22 points. The S&P 500 is down 13 points, now the Dow Jones just went negative. NASDAQ is down 144 points as markets continue to digest this morning's CPI report. Right now, Kellanova shares are up 8% after the food maker agreed to be acquired by snack maker Mars for $83.50 per share in cash. The deal values Kellanova at about $36 billion and is expected to close in the first half of 2025. Alphabet shares are down just over 3% after Bloomberg News reported U.S. regulators are weighing a breakup of the tech giant. Per the report, which cites people with knowledge of the discussions, the units most likely to be divested are Google's Chrome browser and Android operating system if the Justice Department pushes for a breakup. U.S. shares of the British chip designer ARM Holdings are up 4.3% after Intel sold its 1.18 million share stake. Shares of Intel, whose move came amid restructuring and cost-cutting efforts, are down 2.75%. And finally, the healthcare company Cardinal Health is up 5.5% after reporting fiscal fourth quarter results that beat expectations. Cardinal earned $1.84 per share, excluding items on $59.87 billion in revenue, while analysts polled anticipated $1.73 per share and $58.64 billion. The Ohio-based company also raised its full-year guidance for earnings per share.
This is Ask Todd on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. If you have an existing estate plan or are in the market for one, Todd Lutsky is here to answer your questions and help you plan for later life. Ask Todd is presented by Cushing & Dolan, serving Massachusetts and New England for more than 35 years, helping families with estate and tax planning, Medicaid planning, and probate law. Visit CushingDolan.com. Now, here's Todd Lutsky.
And we are now joined by Todd Lutsky from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan. The segment, it's called Ask Todd because you get to ask Todd your estate planning questions. We've got the phone lines open at 888-205-2263. That is the number to call to ask Todd your estate planning questions. Last week, we couldn't get to everyone, so if you were one of the people last week who was trying to call and you couldn't get your question answered, 888-205-2263 is the number. If you want to get in line early to make sure that you're able to ask Todd your question today, that number again is 888-205-2263. We do have space on the phone lines, and so again, make sure you call 888-205-2263 to ask Todd Lutsky your questions. Mr. Lutsky, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. And should I ask how you're doing?
I'm okay.
Yeah, what happened?
I got into a fight with a baby frog yesterday.
Yeah? How'd that work out?
Well, he was a tad polarizing.
Yeah, it sure would be.
So it didn't go great. But, Todd, I want to talk a little bit about Medicaid irrevocable trust today. And let's say that someone has an irrevocable trust that is built for the purpose of qualifying assets for Medicaid.
Okay.
What can and can't they do with the assets that are placed in said irrevocable trust?
Should we just try to pick on both, or like income? You want to do like real estate or money? Or should we do both?
Let's start with money.
Money's good. That's what you work on. So we'll do money.
Let's start with money.
So let's say you put the money in the trust, right? And again, folks, and it's very important. The way Chuck described this is that it's the kind of irrevocable trust that we do to protect from the nursing homes, because there are many kinds of irrevocable trust. I want to put that out there first, that so many people hear the word irrevocable and think rigid, inflexible, I can't change it, I can't do anything. There are those kinds. This isn't one of them. And I that's why Chuck was trying to make it clear that this is for Medicaid protection purposes. Now, that said, what can you put in? Well, you can put in real estate. You can put in money, rental properties, not IRAs. So let's say we put your investment portfolio and let's call it $500,000. Okay, we got $500,000 in the trust. If it wasn't in the trust, you would be managing and investing that money. I would imagine that's what people do. If it's in the trust, you would be managing and investing that money just like you do today. Okay, well, once that money is managed and invested, and again, when I say that, I mean you can call your broker, you can talk to your financial advisor. Even if you're not the trustee, you're allowed to do that. Okay, that's called limited trading authority, so no problem. Okay, well, then this money, after you do all of this, is generating interest and dividends. So, well, that's income. I want my income. Well, the trust gives you the income just like it would give you the income today. So if you didn't do your planning and you had the money sitting in your brokerage account, you'd get the income. Okay, well, that makes sense. So far, so good. Well, at the end of the year, you get a nasty 1099 that says this is how much income you earned, and you get to put that on your tax return today. Well, if you have it in one of these Medicaid trusts, which we design specifically as grantor trusts, which means for income tax purposes, you're considered the owner, well, then you get to put that money on your income tax return. And yes, you get to put it on your income tax return, your own personal income tax return, at your own personal rates, just like you would if you didn't have the trust. Even if you don't take the money out. I mean, think about it. So many times today you've got your portfolio, but you don't take any money out. It's just growing, but you still got to pay taxes on it. Same deal here. The only difference is this trust will have an ID number when you open up that account. It's like a social security number for a trust. And then this trust will file its income tax return based on that ID number. But because it's a grantor trust, the form is 1041, but because it's a grantor trust, it will not report any income. It will kick out a letter to you, the owner, and you'll put the numbers on your tax return just like before. So sounds to me like very little change, even with an irrevocable trust.
Talking with Todd Lutsky from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan. If you have a question that you'd like to ask Todd about your estate plan, the studio line here is 888-205-2263. That is the number to call to ask Todd your questions about your estate plan. Again, it is 888-205-2263. We're going to take a quick break right now, but when we come back, we're going to get right to your questions with Todd. That number is 888-205-2263. One more time, it's 888-205-2263. Your questions when we come back.
This is your home for the most comprehensive coverage of the economy and the trends on Wall Street. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Recent reports suggest that a record 4.1 million Americans may retire this year alone. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and if you're one of them, you'll want to have a retirement plan in place that focuses on several objectives. When to actually retire is a very important one to consider. Retiring early while giving you more time to enjoy life after work also means you'll need your money to last longer. Retiring later may not give you as much time to enjoy life's pleasures, but you'll have more time to save money. It's important for your retirement plan to strike a reasonable balance, and our new guide may help. It's called A Day in the Life of a Retiree, and it's yours free by calling 800-393-4001. The guide discusses these issues and more, so please call 800-393-4001. Once again, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Last year, we introduced you to Mark Vaughter, CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Mark is a career military man, and we're proud to have him back as the presenting sponsor of the 2024 DAV 5K Boston.
I'm a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans, Department of Massachusetts. The DAV does incredible work, and it was one of the first organizations I became familiar with after my military service ended in 1984. As I built my company, Veterans Development Corporation, I did it knowing that I'd be giving back to fellow vets who need jobs, support services, toys, medical supplies, and much more. I work with disabled veterans every day and is one of the key reasons why I'm such a big supporter of Dan Stack and the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts in this year's DAV 5K Boston. Please join me in supporting this tremendous cause by taking part in this year's event or by making a donation to the DAV.
Veterans Development Corporation is proud to be the presenting sponsor of this year's DAV 5K, taking place on Saturday, November 9th at Fort Independence in South Boston. To register for this year's race, visit dav5k.boston.
Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and creating a trust is a great way to help. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law. Their brand new guide out this month is called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. There are many types of trusts to consider, but irrevocable trusts can establish the kinds of safeguards you'll need to protect your assets long term. Learn about how the trust can protect your assets from probate and potentially eliminate your estate taxes. If you're closing in on retirement and have an existing trust that needs a second look, or if you need a new trust to ensure that your assets are secured, call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and let them help you create a plan that gives you confidence in your financial future. That number again is 866-848-5699. Or request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Are you retired like me and you just found out you owe the IRS a ton of money? Well, what would your life be like if they took your retirement savings away from you? They can do it and your property. If you owe the IRS back taxes or you haven't filed in a while, the Tax Relief Line is here to help you. They can stop the IRS from taking your retirement savings. If you qualify, you could have your tax bill reduced to zero. That's right. If you're retired and you owe the IRS a lot in back taxes, you could have your entire tax bill reduced to zero due. The IRS has now hired thousands of new employees, so they're ready to come after you. Don't let them take your retirement savings or property. Make this free call now.
800-251-2153. 800-251-2153. 800-251-2153. That's 800-251-2153.
The Financial Exchange streams live on YouTube. Like our page and stay up to date on breaking business news all morning long. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
As promised, it's time to get right to your calls with Todd Lutsky. First in the queue, we've got Michael from West Roxbury. Michael, what's your question for Todd Lutsky?
Yes, I have a last-minute problem that I hopefully he can give me some good resolutions to. Basically, my mother is already in a nursing home with no pre-planning.
Okay.
And we have been there for over a year, and she's gone through all of her cash.
Oh, boy.
And now we have the house that's been sold.
The house has already been sold?
Correct.
Oh, boy.
It is.
This is one mistake after another.
Yes, it is.
So how much money did you get for the house?
$560, I think we cleared. All
And
said and done.
And how old is your mom?
She's 83.
83. So
Actually, she's 84.
So basically, at this point, you're saying, please, can I stop paying $15,000 a month to the nursing home, and how can I get eligible for Medicaid is really the only thing that I see. And last-minute planning can be done. Of course, we all wish you would have done a year ago, folks, and this is important for everybody. This isn't necessarily, to just pick on this situation. This is important for everybody to learn from this, that if you're in the nursing home and you're writing that check, don't just write the check, right? Call somebody right away, because a year ago we probably could have stopped this. So we would have taken whatever money they had a year ago, and they probably spent a good $150,000, I'm guessing, on the nursing home. So we would have taken that $150,000 a year ago, bought a Medicaid annuity for it, converting it to an income stream, assuming there's no community spouse, and it's just your mom, then we would have gotten rid of that, getting her down to $2,000, and having a primary residence. It's non-countable in the form of a primary residence. And so she would have been eligible for Medicaid a year ago. She would have been eligible for Medicaid a whole year ago. And we would have stopped or slowed the bleeding. Now, the fact that that didn't happen and we're faced with the money already being spent and now we're selling a house, if the house wasn't sold and you had called prior to selling the house, even though you spent $150 for a year in the nursing home, I would have said don't sell the house. Let's either rent it or just maintain it if the children know they're going to get it, and you'd be eligible for Medicaid because a house, primary residence, non-countable for Medicaid eligibility. Yes, it's lienable, but it's non-countable, so it's a huge savings. But since it's been sold and we're now left with just money, and there's plenty of people who have just money when they're entering a nursing home, we're back to this idea of buying an annuity for an 83-year-old person. They are a special designed Medicaid annuity. You need to seek out help from an elder law attorney to do this. Don't just try to buy it on your own. And apply for Medicaid. I can tell you that we can get your mom eligible for Medicaid pretty much right away and slow the bleeding. When I say slow the bleeding, I mean it will go from a approximately $15,000 a month nursing home bill to a full pay $6,500 a month approximately nursing home bill, of which is offset by Social Security and the annuity payment. So the state will be paying a little. So that's a really big help. I hope that gets you at least thinking about what the next steps are for you. And folks, one of the things I think that we should talk about is, you know, here there's no planning done, and it does happen. I get it. There's not something you can do all the time. But the guide we're giving away this month is Unlocking the Power of Medicaid Irrevocable Trusts, and it really describes for you how they work. And if Mike's mom had done the planning in advance, or anybody, not picking on Mike's mom, but if instead they put that house in the trust 5 years ago, that house would be all protected. We wouldn't be worried about any of this at this point. And while putting it in there, learn how the trust works, and you'll see how much control you keep, because I think you'll find that there's way more control over these trusts than not. And if you've never done a trust and you want to learn how they work, this guide is for you. 866-848-5699 or legalexchangeshow.com. Again, 866-848-5699 or legalexchangeshow.com, and you can get the guide.
Todd, I've got another caller for you here. Let's go to Dave in Worcester. Dave, you're on with Todd Lutsky.
Good morning, Todd.
Hi, Dave.
My question is concerning a property owned in a revocable trust with a mortgage attached to it.
You said revocable trust, correct?
Yes.
Revocable trust. Okay, and it's got a mortgage. I'm with you.
Mortgage has been paid for about 10, 15 years. My question was concerning the due-on clause. Is there, say the owner of the trust expires, the beneficiaries to receive that property, what has to happen as far as the due-on clause is concerned? Is there some sort of language that can be put into the trust to pay the mortgage on their demise?
So,
how does that work?
Is the person currently still living?
Yes.
Okay, so I can address this. So now, because the property, I think it's important for people to understand the difference between revocable and irrevocable. So in this case, it's in a revocable trust. The initial setting up of the document, putting the property, even though it's encumbered in a revocable trust, has no bearing on the due on sale clause. And that's what Dave was referring to. It's a due on sale, due on transfer clause. All mortgages have these because they didn't lend to the person you're giving it to. They lent to you. So you then would have to be the one that would be on the note. Now, putting it into a revocable trust, no impact. However, as Dave indicated, what happens when the creator, the donor of the revocable trust dies? Well, the revocable trust becomes irrevocable right away, and that technically you're now, if you read the document, it probably says the property located in the trust or the assets in the trust need to be divided and paid out, let's just say, equally to the kids. Well, if it says divide and pay it out equally to the kids, what do we have? We have a transfer. we have the property coming out of the trust to the kids that will trigger the due on sale clause, the due on transfer clause, having the bank call the note. Now, they might not know right away, and there might be language in the trust that allows you to pay this bill. I don't know if it's in there or it's not in there, but technically, if you're getting the money in the trust, just take the money and pay the mortgage. But the bank's going to learn about the death, and they're going to call it. So your best bet is simply to go to the bank and ask them, can we strike up a deal to assume the mortgage? And they will tell you. Obviously, we're in a high-rate environment now, or a higher-rate environment. They'll let you know what the story is. But, yeah, hard to deal with. There's no way around the due on sale clause.
Mr. Lutsky, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
This has been Ask Todd on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Ask Todd with Todd Lutsky has been presented by Cushing & Dolan, serving Massachusetts and New England for more than 30 years, helping families with estate and tax planning, Medicaid planning, and probate law. Call 800-393-4001 or visit CushingDolan.com. The views expressed in this segment are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Armstrong Advisory does not provide any legal or tax advice. Please consult with your legal or tax advisor on such matters. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Elder life planning can be overwhelming, so make sure you're prepared, or you could make costly mistakes that affect your overall plan. Irrevocable trusts are the most common type of trust that folks use for financial protection. And while they can be complicated to create, they help keep your assets safe because they contain specific protections that many of us need, like the possibility of eliminating your estate taxes. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law and taxation, and they can devise a plan that covers you in every area where issues can arise. Their new guide is called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. Learn more about how these trusts can benefit your family by calling 866-848-5699 right now. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide right now by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Still a lot to come as we get towards the second hour of the show, including we'll talk a little bit about millennials and how they're doing economically. There was a lot of hand-wringing about that, 10, 15 years ago when millennials were entering the workforce. So we'll check in and ask some actual millennials, hey, how's it going, dudes? What's going on? We're also going to be talking a little bit about mortgages and trends that we're seeing there, and then also Social Security and what's going on with artificial intelligence these days. So still a ton to get through as we head towards the second hour of the show. Stick around. Back in just a few.
Despite overwhelming support from Democrats and Republicans, time is running out for Congress to pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act, which will keep AM radio in cars. Text AM to 52886 and ask Congress to bring this bill to a vote now. AM radio is too important to let this moment pass us by.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Summer in New England is spectacular. Winter in the U.S. Virgin Islands is even better. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John are 3 of the most incredible islands anywhere in the Caribbean, and their popularity has soared over the past 3 years. If you're ready for your next fabulous vacation, now's the time to check out the American Caribbean. Go to visitusvi.com, where you'll find all the information you need to book a trip that you'll never forget. The St. Croix Crucian Festival runs from December 26th to January 4th. Celebrate New Year's on St. Croix and enjoy world-class cuisine, pristine beaches, a wide variety of water sports, and some of the greatest musical acts the islands have to offer. Travel to and from New England is simple, and your stay will be hassle-free because this is the American Caribbean. There's no passport needed and no money to exchange. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Go to visitusvi.com and make your plans today. That's visitusvi.com.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act, and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network. WBNW 1120 AM and W275 CM FM. Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network.
This is Tucker Silva with the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutsky from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And today, we're talking about how Medicaid irrevocable trusts operate. Now, Todd, it takes 5 years to protect your assets from the cost of long-term care. If you aren't sure you or your spouse will make the 5 years before going into a nursing home, should you even bother to do your estate planning?
The answer is absolutely yes, you should bother. And here's why, folks. There's people who maybe don't even start their planning until they're 80. It doesn't mean just because you're 80, you don't try, you don't plan, right? 85, you plan. You don't know whether you're going to get sick or not get sick. But by the same token, when you're 65 and you're doing your planning, you also might not make it past the 5 years. So just because you might not make it past the 5 years is not a reason to get this clock started. For example, lots of times when we put assets in the trust, we leave lots of assets outside the trust, especially IRA assets. So let's say you made it 3 years, but you had $200,000 in an IRA outside the trust. If I got $1 million worth of assets in the trust, I'm happy to spend $200,000 of my IRA to get past the remaining 2 years to get me protected from the nursing home with the $1 million that went in there. So getting the clock started is always better than not having the clock started.
Cushing & Dolan have been helping families like yours for more than 30 years, and find out if they can help yours too. Request this brand new guide called Unlocking the Power of Medicaid Irrevocable Trust. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Discover the fish and farm market at the Boston Fish Pier. Open every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. in Boston Seaport. From fresh seafood to juicy tomatoes and sweet corn to grab-and-go options, indulge in the peak of summer's bounty. Support local farmers and enjoy the freshest ingredients all summer long. Sponsored by Mass Farmers Markets, a nonprofit dedicated to championing farmers markets across Massachusetts. Find a market near you at massfarmersmarkets.org.
If you're getting close to retirement, you've likely thought about how you'll spend all of your free time. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and with no more 40-hour work weeks or hour-long commutes on your agenda, you might find yourself on the links in Florida or traveling the world with your spouse and family. The financial pieces of the retirement puzzle are important. Having a specific plan about how you want to live day to day in your post-professional life is just as important, and our new guide called A Day in the Life of a Retiree may help. You can get it today by calling 800-393-4001. In the guide, we're going to discuss how to connect your financial needs in retirement to where and how you'll be living. Call us again at 800-393-4001 and get your free copy today. That number again, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. services.
Hi, I'm Lisa Hughes. This Veterans Day weekend, help honor all who've served our country and join WBZ for the annual DAV 5K, a run or walk to support disabled vets here in Massachusetts with housing, transportation, and other critical support. Saturday, November 9th at DCR's Castle Island in South Boston. Let's thank all who have sacrificed for our freedom and help our heroes on their road to recovery. Visit DAV5K.Boston to register or donate today.
The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation.
Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and irrevocable trusts can help you. Keep your assets safe from probate and the nursing home by calling Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699. Get their new guide called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. That's 866-848-5699, or request it online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
For 40 years, Cancer Support Community has been a relentless ally for anyone impacted by cancer, with free services provided online and in person, with their newest location in Massachusetts. Connect with Cancer Support Community Massachusetts for free emotional support, educational resources, patient navigation, financial counseling, and more. 617-797-3391. CancerSupportMass.org, CancerSupportMass.org.
The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor that provides investment advisory services. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else, and do not guarantee profit. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Paul Lane. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting DAV5K.Boston and making a donation today. The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Paul Lane.
It's Chuck, Paul, and Ben with you today, and not too much movement in markets thus far this morning through the first hour and a half or so of trading. The Dow's up 84 points, less than 0.25%. The S&P's up 4 points. The Nasdaq's down 41, so just kind of hanging out, hovering around, not really doing much. 10-year U.S. Treasury's down 3 basis points at 3.822%. We've got oil, West Texas Intermediate down 70 cents to 77.65. The AAA national average for gas prices moving back up again, 0.1 cent to 3.44 0.5 cents. And we've got gold down $18.80 an ounce to $24.89 even. That's what we got moving in markets today. Paul, before we get to our next story, I have a name question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it pronounced Paul and not Paul?
You've already done this before.
I have.
Yeah.
On the air?
Yes. I have no insight for you.
Still none. I didn't remember it. There you go.
That's when you know you're getting old. Recycling the old joke bits.
Well, no, I honestly, I thought of it again today. It's like, look, half the time, I don't even know who I've talked to about different things, and I just end up repeating myself, and it's fine.
With young kids, I get it. It's your mine gets foggy too.
Well, part of it also is you have to repeat yourself to them.
That's very true.
And so I think that you just get in the habit of repetition.
Yeah.
Because you have to repeat yourself to them, and so you get in the habit of repetition.
I get that for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about millennials, because there's a piece here, and actually, no, I want to introduce this differently. Back in maybe 2011, 2012, there was just this litany of written pieces that came out that talked about how millennials are never going to be able to recover from the Great Recession, and that their entire life is going to be scarred by this economically for decades to come. And lo and behold, it's 15, 17 years after the Great Recession. And the data that we're now seeing is that millennials in the aggregate, again, because not every millennial is the same. We don't all eat avocado toast every day. We don't all only drink IPAs. We don't all wear glasses with no rims, the clear rims and stuff like that now that are very hip and popular. We're all a little bit different, okay, in our own ways. But millennials in the aggregate right now, in many different metrics, are tracking as strongly or stronger than their parents were, the baby boomers, at the same time in their respective lives.
It's impressive.
The kids are all right, Paul.
That we are back.
The kids are all right. We are so back. What's going on here?
Really, the crux of it is the housing market that we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years, where if you look collectively throughout the nation, anywhere between 40 to 50% increase on house prices, depending on what territory you look at over the last 4 or 5 years. And for those older millennials in particular, those who were born more so in the 1980s rather than the 1990s, 60% of those people owned a home. And when you see your biggest asset appreciate by 40 or 50%, that's going to add a lot of household wealth. And that's one of the ways that they study some of the metrics here. It's about $2.5 trillion of increase to overall net worth that millennials receive from housing. Now, some of this I have trouble reconciling. Certainly it's good. You want to see your house go up in value, but also other homes like it have gone up just as much. So I sit back and say it's fantastic to be sitting in a position where you have a lot of equity in your home. But at the same point in time, it is truly on paper. That is sort of a side note. The other factors is we've seen a really strong stock market over the last 10 plus years, where outside of only 2 years, I believe 2022, negative 18%, and 2018, perhaps negative as well. But really, seldom, detrimental negative years on the market and a lot of positive years mixed into that. Those factors combined, and I believe household formation plays a factor too. You have people getting married and having less children, and ultimately, as we know, particularly as the kids get older, we haven't experienced this yet, but they just get more and more expensive, so there's more net worth that builds up on that front as well.
So things weren't as dire as they seemed a decade ago.
To be fair, we've had a phenomenal decade of economic growth, not GDP-wise, but with the housing market more recently and the stock market. There's been some favorable conditions that have contributed to that. If you were sitting back in 2012, I don't know you would have projected that the next 10 years would have been as strong as they have been.
So things aren't as good as they seem today. Here's where I'm going with this. And there's a story, it gets told as like an old Chinese parable. The premise of it is simple. So there's a farmer who his horse runs away, and all his neighbors show up at his house and they're like, "Oh, that's too bad." And he just sits there and he goes, "Maybe." And the next day the horse comes back and it brought 7 more wild horses with it. And he's like, everyone comes and is like, "Oh, this is great. This is amazing." He's just like, "Well, maybe." And the next day, his son gets on the horse for the first time and falls off and breaks his leg. And everyone goes, "Oh, this is so horrible. How could this possibly happen?" And he goes, "Well, maybe." And the day after, there's a war that's declared, and everyone goes and rounds up all of the able-bodied, men to go fight. And his son can't go, and everyone says, "Oh, this is great. He gets to stay. He doesn't have to." He says, "Maybe." And the point that you take from this is that, look, things are never as good or as bad as they seem at the highs and the lows. Everything in 2010 seemed like it would never come back and never recover. And likewise, when you're at, all-time peaks in the stock market and when unemployment a year goes at 3.5%, you think nothing's ever going to be bad again. And this is why it's kind of irresponsible to say that a generation has either now made it or never was going to make it 10 years ago. Because all of this is subject to forces that are going to change what the economy and markets look like over the next decade that we can't predict with any kind of accuracy. So do millennials get to walk around now saying, "Yeah, we're doing better than our parents were at the same age"? Sure, if you want to. But don't be surprised if 10 years from now you're like, "Oh, now we're doing a little bit worse than our parents at the same age because maybe things didn't go quite as well. Maybe they end up going better again." I don't know. But these are just snapshots of a point in time. And ultimately, I think what we need to be looking at is not, hey, how are they doing now, but what's trending, what's caused this, and is this sustainable? And the answer in both respects, both 10 years ago when millennials could never, afford avocado toast, and now when they can buy an entire avocado farm, neither's, exactly right. Like, it's a snapshot, and that's all that it is. And I say this as a card-carrying member of the millennials. They don't actually give us cards anymore because
everything's digital.
Everything's digital. But I've got in my Apple Wallet, I've got my millennial ID card now.
And in the metaverse. You don't hear that a lot anymore.
You know why? Because it sucks. Sorry, it does.
It always did.
Stop. It's just like Mean Girls. It's like, stop trying to make metaverse happen, Mark. It's not going to happen.
It didn't, yeah.
It's the peak metaverse was when I think it was like McDonald's and Coca-Cola, their corporate Instagram accounts or something, were like, hey, see you in the metaverse. And like the other one said back to the other, like, yeah, we'll see you in the metaverse. And then no one else came.
They're still waiting.
It's, there's just...
Real estate values have plummeted.
I wonder what metaverse real estate values are like these days. We should really try, Ben, if you have any way that you can dig around on that in the next day or two, I want to see what metaversical real estate looks like. Beachfront and is there a Midwest in the metaverse?
You got to watch out for erosion at beachfront properties.
If erosion happens in the metaverse, does your metaversical flood insurance go up?
Metaverse land prices plummeted by nearly 95% from peak values. That just came out last week.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah.
The worst part is they could still go down another 95%.
Maybe the millennials aren't as good off as we thought.
Do you
actually, that wouldn't be our generation. It would be probably the next one. Nobody was there. But
I'd like to know who was buying metaversical real estate. Because the whole premise of real estate is they can't make more land, but in the metaverse they can.
Always.
And you can't actually do anything with it. Like, you can't eat a metaversical fruit.
Nope.
Not that you would want to anyways. But whatever. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we've got trivia, and then we're talking real estate commissions after this.
Tune in for Trivia, brought to you by Applebee's. Every day at 11:20 for your chance to win cool prizes. Text us at 617-362-1385 and use keyword Applebee's. Complete rules are available at financialexchangeshow.com. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Last year, we introduced you to Mark Vaughter, CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Mark is a career military man, and we're proud to have him back as the presenting sponsor of the 2024 DAV 5K Boston.
I'm a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans, Department of Massachusetts. The DAV does incredible work, and it was one of the first organizations I became familiar with after my military service ended in 1984. As I built my company, Veterans Development Corporation, I did it knowing that I'd be giving back to fellow vets who need jobs, support services, medical supplies, and much more. I work with disabled veterans every day, and is one of the key reasons why I'm such a big supporter of Dan Stack and the Disabled American Veterans, Department of Massachusetts, in this year's DAV 5K Boston. Please join me in supporting this tremendous cause by taking part in this year's event or by making a donation to the DAV.
Veterans Development Corporation is proud to be the presenting sponsor of this year's DAV 5K, taking place on Saturday, November 9th at Fort Independence in South Boston. To register for this year's race, visit dav5k.boston.
Summer in New England is spectacular. Winter in the U.S. Virgin Islands is even better. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John are three of the most incredible islands anywhere in the Caribbean, and their popularity has soared over the past 3 years. If you're ready for your next fabulous vacation, now's the time to check out the American Caribbean. Go to visitusvi.com, where you'll find all the information you need to book a trip that you'll never forget. The St. Croix Crucian Festival runs from December 26th to January 4th. Celebrate New Year's on St. Croix and enjoy world-class cuisine, pristine beaches, a wide variety of water sports, and some of the greatest musical acts the islands have to offer. Travel to and from New England is simple, and your stay will be hassle-free because this is the American Caribbean. There's no passport needed and no money to exchange. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Go to visitusvi.com and make your plans today. That's visitusvi.com.
Recent reports suggest that a record 4.1 million Americans may retire this year alone. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and if you're one of them, you'll want to have a retirement plan in place that focuses on several objectives. When to actually retire is a very important one to consider. Retiring early while giving you more time to enjoy life after work also means you'll need your money to last longer. Retiring later may not give you as much time to enjoy life's pleasures, but you'll have more time to save money. It's important for your retirement plan to strike a reasonable balance, and our new guide may help. It's called A Day in the Life of a Retiree, and it's yours free by calling 800-393-4001. The guide discusses these issues and more, so please call 800-393-4001. Once again, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Despite overwhelming support from Democrats and Republicans, time is running out for Congress to pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act, which will keep AM radio in cars. Text AM to 52886 and ask Congress to bring this bill to a vote now. AM radio is too important to let this moment pass us by.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
The Financial Exchange streams live on YouTube. Like our page and stay up to date on breaking business news all morning long. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Trivia is brought to you by Applebee's. Take your friends or family to any area Applebee's and enjoy half-price late-night appetizers after 9 p.m., including boneless wings, spinach and artichoke dip, and warm pretzels dipped in beer cheese. And don't forget to join Club Applebee's to enjoy exclusive deals and specials. You'll get a free appetizer just for signing up. Now that's eating good in the neighborhood. Void where prohibited. Dine in only. On July 3rd, 1985... Back to the Future hit theaters across the country and would go on to make over $190 million at the domestic box office. Aside from Marty and Doc Brown, the star of the movie was the car that Doc Brown turned into a time machine. Today's question is, what kind of car was used as a time machine in Back to the Future? What kind of car was used as a time machine in Back to the Future? Be the third person to text us at 617-362-1385 with the correct answer, and you'll win a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt and be registered to win a $100 gift card to Applebee's. Be sure to include the keyword Applebee's in your text. We'll give away the Applebee's gift card on Friday's show. That's 617-362-1385, and the third correct response will be our winner. See the complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Paul, earlier this year, there was a settlement that was reached by the National Association of Realtors regarding its commission structure. What was the landscape before this settlement, and what does it look like going forward here?
The focus of the settlement was really around transparency on real estate commissions out there, and the initial accusations that were filed in this lawsuit were that the National Association of Realtors, which is about 1.5 million members, were conspiring together to basically force the home purchasers or home sellers out there to pay under a certain set commission structure. After this landmark decision, there is supposed to be a lot more transparency and flexibility in the arrangements that you have with real estate commissions. However, the question that I kick back to you, Chuck, as I read through this piece, and these rules are set to go in on August 17th. I've read through this piece done by the Wall Street Journal, and I can't really discern what is going to change things so dramatically from a buying and selling standpoint. And I'm wondering if I'm missing something.
So here's kind of where I've landed on this, which is the point that's been made by a few people has been, hey, now you can negotiate on, these fees because realtors aren't, going to be pressured as much by the NAR to hold the line on fees and this and that. Or like, hey, you can pay your agent a different way. Like you could pay him hourly if you want, or you could pay him, a certain amount based on, this type of transaction and that one. And here's the thing. The idea that you're going to, have some great negotiating ability for your real estate commission, I don't think matches my experience for two reasons. The first is, in a typical lifetime, most people buy one or two houses. And it's kind of overwhelming when you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's really scary. You're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm borrowing thousands of dollars. What am I, like, my hair's on fire. What's going on? The idea that during that process, you're just going to sit down and calmly negotiate, like, oh, here's my, how I'm going to, deal with my agent. You don't have any experience doing that. You're doing it for the first time. Like, you're not going to be good at it. You're not good at anything the first time. Like, think about the first time you pick up a golf club or the first time you play chess or the first, like, you're horrible. You're like, oh, like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I think that's part of it. The other piece is, okay, if you look at the actual compensation of a lot of real estate agents, I know that in expensive markets, people look at it and be like, oh, I'm selling, a triple decker in, Brighton, and I bought it 40 years ago for, $40,000. Now I'm selling it for $2 million because the market's gone in that direction. Why should I pay my, agent $100,000 that 5% commission? And it's true, like that might seem a little bit nuts in expensive markets. But remember that most of the country isn't living in New York City or inside the 128 in Boston or in Washington, D.C. Like most of the country, if you're a real estate agent, okay, you sell a place for $300,000, you get a 5% commission, which is $15,000. You split that with the other agent, so you're getting $7,500. And
then probably
half
your
of that
brokerage house
goes to
is
your
covering,
brokerage and fees and this and that. So you make like $3,000 on the transaction, and if you do 10 of those, you get $30,000 a year. Like, how much wiggle room do you have on your fees for them to go down? It's not a very profitable business for you to begin with there. So I think those two factors lead me to believe that I don't know if you're going to see that much movement on these prices, actually.
Right.
Or on the structure.
And I do have sympathy for the structure. It often gets talked about the big commission that the realtors get, but what often doesn't get brought up is how exhausting the process can be for them for those sales that don't close. And there are many of which that occurs where they spend hours and hours of time, multiple visits with you, consultations, and then you don't find a house, or in this market in particular in the Northeast, it may take 3 or 4 years. And that
was my exact situation. I was working with someone for 2 years before we finally bought a place.
So at that point, it's like, geez, if I'm sitting on the side as your realtor, I'm like, Chuck, I've been at this for 2 years with you, and now you're going to haircut me after all the calls and emails that we've exchanged and visits. And so that's where I have more sympathy to the way that their compensation is structured, because there's a lot of failures that don't get talked about when that closing gets done. But the more I read this, it just seems like the one other interesting tidbit is that you might agree to a particular percentage that your buyer's agent would get prior to looking at a house. You'd sign that agreement. That is new. So that's just something to keep in mind. It formalizes the process of looking at an open house a little bit.
Talking about a different part of the housing market, mortgage refinancing up 35% in the last week. That is as interest rates touch the mid-sixes for the first time in over a year. And as such, hey, anytime that you get mortgage refinancing activity going up, it's a good sign for the economy. It might not be enough to necessarily stave off recession, at these levels, but here's why it's good. 2 reasons why mortgage refinancing happens. Either A, to lower your monthly payment, which means that you have more disposable income to spend in the economy or to save. Or B, it is something where you're doing a cash out refinance and you're going to take that cash and spend it on something. Either one of those is stimulative to the economy, and so this is great news that you are seeing a big jump in mortgage refinancing. Even if only for a week, we'll see if it lasts, since mortgage rates have bumped back up in the last couple days now. but it still is good news that you saw this bump at least.
There's definitely room for those people who have bought over the last 2 years to refinance, particularly when we're looking at potential rate cuts coming in the fall. So it'll be interesting to see if we do see in the fall and winter, depending on where rates go, more of this activity for those people who bought homes basically from 2022 and beyond here.
Let's take a quick break here, but when we return, we've got the trivia answer, and then we got a merger that we can discuss, a little bit of an acquisition. I think that'll be something that we touch on when we come back.
Bringing the latest financial news straight to your radio every day. It's the Financial Exchange on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
For 40 years, Cancer Support Community has been a relentless ally for anyone impacted by cancer, with free services provided online and in person, with their newest location in Massachusetts. Connect with Cancer Support Community Massachusetts for free emotional support, educational resources, patient navigation, financial counseling, and more. 617-797-3391. CancerSupportMass.org. CancerSupportMass.org.
We are the Debt Destroyer Network. Any debt you have, credit card, tax, student loan debt, call now for free information that helps you destroy your debt. It's great advice. Plus, when you make this free call now, we have Debt Destroyer experts ready to help. They can show you how to destroy your debt and get your life back on track. Debt problems don't have to be overwhelming. You can live stress-free and debt-free. Credit cards, medical bills, IRS tax problems, even student loan debt. Learn about free programs offered by the credit card companies, hospitals, and even the government that can help slash your debt. Call the Debt Destroyer now for free information. Call now. 800-430-8804. 800-430-8804. 800-430-8804. Again, that's 800-430-8804.
Discover the fish and farm market at the Boston Fish Pier. Open every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. in Boston Seaport. From fresh seafood to juicy tomatoes and sweet corn to grab-and-go options, indulge in the peak of summer's bounty. Support local farmers and enjoy the freshest ingredients all summer long. Sponsored by Mass Farmers Markets, a nonprofit dedicated to championing farmers markets across Massachusetts. Find a market near you at massfarmersmarkets.org.
Are you looking to volunteer for an amazing nonprofit organization that helps our veterans? The DAV Department of Massachusetts Transportation Network needs volunteers right now. This network provides free transportation to and from any VA medical appointment for veterans of all eras. To become a volunteer driver, you do not need to be a veteran or a DAV member. You just need to have the willingness to help our veterans and have a valid driver's license. Sign up now at davma.org. That's davma.org.
Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and irrevocable trusts can help you. Keep your assets safe from probate and the nursing home by calling Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699. Get their new guide called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. That's 866-848-5699, or request it online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we've got a guide out this month titled A Day in the Life of a Retiree. The big focus of this guide is about figuring out what you actually want to do with your time in retirement, not just the financial piece, but how are you going to spend your days? How does someone go about figuring that out, Mike, or starting to figure it out?
Yeah, Chuck, I love this piece because it is a lot different than our normal course of what we put together from the Armstrong Advisory Group. And what I tell people frequently, one, I'm not going to tell you how to spend your retirement. I have no idea. But the most successful retirees, and by successful, I mean the most content in retirement, who are not stressed about money, are those who have really thought through a coherent plan of not just what I don't want to do in retirement, i.e. work, but what I want to accomplish and do when I'm done working.
It seems to me that it really has to be something where you say, I'm retiring to do this, not retiring from doing that more than anything else.
And often that's the focus because, look, for a lot of us, work is extremely stressful. We've been supporting families for decades, and the allure of not having to do that, not having to pull in that paycheck anymore is really tempting. But I'm here to say that I've looked at a lot of this from a lot of different people in all sorts of different industries, and the most successful ones are the ones that are retiring because they're passionate about something that they want to do that they finally have time for.
Our guide is titled A Day in the Life of a Retiree, and you can request it by calling 800-393-4001. Again, the guide is A Day in the Life of a Retiree, and you can request it by calling 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Missed one of our shows? Catch up anytime by asking your Alexa smart speaker to play the Financial Exchange. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
What kind of car was used as the time machine in Back to the Future? Well, that would be a DeLorean. The DeLorean was deliberately selected for its general appearance and gull-wing doors in order to make it plausible that people in 1955 would presume it to be an alien spacecraft. Today's winner is Mike from Framingham. He has won a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt and is also registered to win a $100 gift card to Applebee's. We'll be giving away the gift card on Friday's show. Trivia is brought to you by Applebee's. Enjoy half-price late-night appetizers after 9 p.m. and join Club Applebee's to enjoy exclusive deals and specials. You get a free appetizer just for signing up. Now that's eating good in the neighborhood. Void where prohibited. Dine in only.
Paul, are you a big fan of Mars?
The candy company? Or
yeah.
the planet?
No, the candy company. Everyone's a fan of the planet. Like, who doesn't like Mars, the planet?
You can't knock M&M's, Snickers, and Skittles. Those, I'm certainly a fan.
So, Mars is in agreement now to buy Kellanova, the spin-off from Kellogg's, that has, again, a lot of their snack foods that previously were under the Kellogg's brand in it. We talked about this a little bit on Friday with Paul LaMonica from Barron's saying that this deal was close, and now it looks like the deal is going to be happening.
Yeah, it's Mars is going to be purchasing Kellanova, which includes, as you mentioned, some of those snacks that many of us are familiar with, whether it be Cheez-Its, Rice Krispie Treats, and Eggos. It was separated from Kellogg back in 2023. Mars will be purchasing them for a whopping $29 billion at $83.50 a share. Mars will take on about $6 billion of debt to finance the acquisition. And to me, what stands out about this deal is it's been a very quiet market in terms of deal activity, particularly in this kind of consumer staples or consumer packaged goods area. And Mars is a private company, but it seems as if this particular sector would be one that you wouldn't be jumping or chomping at the bit to make this type of large acquisition. You have a little bit of a slowdown on consumer spending in this particular area. You can make the argument whether it's Ozempic or people being more health conscious, you'd think that it would be an area that they wouldn't be so eager to jump into. But to be fair, Kellanova has seen a really tremendous amount of sales growth on their side of things here.
So I'm trying to figure out one piece on this that has been bothersome to me. And again, I'm just reading about it, how they split this deal up, is that Kellogg's North American cereal branch was split off and named WK Kellogg Company. And then you have Kellanova, which is the snack brand.
Right.
One of the snack brands is Rice Krispies Treats. So do they have to buy from WK Kellogg in order to fund
to make the
Rice Krispie Treats?
You'd think so.
That seems like a conflict of interest.
Hopefully they'd get a good deal.
Right?
Though.
Like, do you get bulk pricing? Is that negotiated in advance? Other brands that you have in here under Kellanova, just in case you're wondering, Cheez-Its, Eggos, Morningstar Farms, Pop-Tarts.
Yes.
Pringles, which we said. What's a Sunshine Biscuit?
That's a great question.
But Sunshine Biscuits is under here. Cars Table Water Crackers. Incognito.
Nice name.
Great name. Probably, meh. Let's see. Cracklin' Oat Bran, Garden Burger, Special K snack bars, and this just says frozen breakfast, but I don't know if that's a brand. And if it is, it's a little too generically named.
Definitely, you know what you're getting into with that.
It's actually a hot dinner, which is the confusing part of it. But in any case, that deal looks like it is agreed to. And so Kellanova likely being taken over by the privately held Mars Corporation. That's fun. Social Security. Do we want to talk about Social Security? We say the same thing every time. We need to fix it. Do we have anything new that we need to say?
The one other thing I add is this CNBC article that we're referencing here is it's a key issue for voters. There's nothing to talk about with this because neither candidate has made any stance on doing anything to fix it. So maybe it's a key issue to voters, but you're not going to find any politician making any stance on it.
Correct. Because the things that you would have to do to fix it are generally not popular.
They're not going to get votes.
You know, you either have to reduce benefits somehow. And again, it doesn't have to be, everyone today, but there's got to be something that happens there. You have to raise taxes somehow, or you have to let people retire later somehow, or require people to retire later and hit full retirement age later somehow.
Neither of those three are a very sexy platform to run on when you're trying to get into office.
We are just so bad at doing what's necessary to improve from a political perspective.
The short.
We don't want to take any pain.
Yeah,
we're soft.
And how short the terms are, it just doesn't really encourage anyone to do what's best for the long term of the country.
We're just kind of soft. It's stuff that we need to do, and we're not doing. Artificial intelligence. This is actually kind of an interesting piece here. So it's titled "The Big Risk for the Market Becoming an AI Echo Chamber," and it is kind of interesting in that the thesis that it lays out is that, hey, if markets decide that just by mentioning AI investments, stock prices are rewarded, then you end up in a situation where companies make more AI investments, which, improve the margins in the sales of chip makers, which then fuel more demand for AI products. And so, you kind of get this whole cycle where everything's being AI driven. The case I'll make is this is no different from any other bubble then, in that eventually reality has to, come to the forefront, and it's just a question of how manic does the market get on AI before it ends up popping.
The other piece is that a lot of these companies have diversified revenue streams where it's not as if they're only beholden to their growth within the AI space. Their stock will be punished the most punitively if they don't, continue the amount of rapid earnings growth that we've seen for these companies like Google, Amazon, and others. But to be clear, they have other very strong sources of revenue. So it differs a little bit from the tech stuff that we saw in the late 90s, where these companies are already very well developed on their own. But to me, it's an interesting point, and it's something that I think about quite frequently, and we've talked about a lot, that it has been a huge propeller of earnings growth in the S&P 500. NVIDIA's tripling their sales from a year ago, but at some point it needs to be utilized for profitability from other companies, and that's what we're waiting to see. Or when is the market going to wake up and realize that it's going to take a while to get that profitability?
Paul, when you talk to actual human beings and not, nerds like us, what sense do you get in terms of how they feel about AI in terms of either interest or excitement or fear? Like what or do those conversations just not happen because no one's even talking about it normally?
I don't feel as if the layperson out there has any real understanding. More so fear because of lack of understanding would be the common theme that I hear. You can talk to specific people who are maybe closer to the tech sector that actually do have a little bit more excitement around it, but that's because their area of expertise overlaps there. But the regular folk who may not be really dealing with it on a day-to-day basis, more so fear of the negative impact it can have rather than some of the productivity enhancements that everyone's hoping for. How about you? Mixture?
Yeah, I don't really, it doesn't even come up in conversation most of the time. It's just kind of like, oh, like someone's doing something with AI. I don't understand that.
Yeah, or just like AI's making the market go up. Kind of like that very broad statement.
And honestly, I don't understand some of the stuff that's being focused on from an AI perspective. I saw this week there were a couple of new updates to some different models and things like that basically are getting to the point where it's becoming almost impossible to distinguish an AI image or video from a real one. And I'm kind of looking at it, I'm going, why are we doing this? Like, what's the upside that you get from that? How is this going to be a net positive for the world?
It's just going to lead to more questioning on what is real and what is
right,
fake,
like
which is
what's the
problem.
positive with most other major inventions you look at and you're like, hey, even though this takes away from something that's currently there, I see the benefit. Like, okay, when the power drill was first invented, you're like, oh, we're not going to need as many people using screwdrivers anymore because they can do more work with power tools. Okay, but this is going to be much faster and we can build more quickly with less effort and yada yada. Got it. Hey, now you can make a video that looks like a real person, but it's not a real person. Why do we need that? What's the upside that I get from that?
It's gonna have to be the productivity argument that think of an arduous task that you have to do on a daily basis, whatever it may be, that with AI will be cut down significantly the amount of time you spend on it.
I understand that, but
okay.
What's the argument for
the fake
AI
stuff? Oh, yeah.
Why do I need AI to be used to generate a video of a person who's not real? Because if we're talking productivity, I use AI as a productivity enhancer right now. Hey, I need to write X. Help me. Here's the prompt I'm going to give you. Help me get started on writing X, and then I'll tweak it from there.
Yep.
Absolutely. I love it. It's great for that.
Yep.
Why do I need AI to make a video of a person who doesn't exist, who I can then make say whatever I want? Like, what does that do for us in a positive sense?
I have nothing to say there.
Like, this is what I'm struggling with. We're now making tools that I can't figure out what the upside is. Other than confusing
more downside,
people.
Much more downside on that front.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, Stack Roulette.
The Financial Exchange Show podcast drops every day on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit that subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. You're listening to the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Hi, I'm Lisa Hughes. This Veterans Day weekend, help honor all who've served our country and join WBZ for the annual DAV 5K, a run or walk to support disabled vets here in Massachusetts with housing, transportation, and other critical support. Saturday, November 9th at DCR's Castle Island in South Boston. Let's thank all who have sacrificed for our freedom and help our heroes on their road to recovery. Visit DAV5K.Boston to register or donate today.
The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation.
Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and irrevocable trusts can help you. Keep your assets safe from probate and the nursing home by calling Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699. Get their new guide called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. That's 866-848-5699, or request it online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Summer in New England is spectacular. Winter in the U.S. Virgin Islands is even better. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John are three of the most incredible islands anywhere in the Caribbean, and their popularity has soared over the past 3 years. If you're ready for your next fabulous vacation, now's the time to check out the American Caribbean. Go to visitusvi.com, where you'll find all the information you need to book a trip that you'll never forget. The St. Croix Crucian Festival runs from December 26th to January 4th. Celebrate New Year's on St. Croix and enjoy world-class cuisine, pristine beaches, a wide variety of water sports, and some of the greatest musical acts the islands have to offer. Travel to and from New England is simple, and your stay will be hassle-free because this is the American Caribbean. There's no passport needed and no money to exchange. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Go to visitusvi.com and make your plans today. That's visitusvi.com. Every single day, more than 2,000 U.S. companies face a cyber threat or attack. The Boston Red Sox in Fenway Park chose Centripetal as their official cyber network security partner to ensure the protection of their network and ballpark. Intelligence is the answer to protecting your network, and Centripetal is the global leader of intelligence-powered cybersecurity. The choice is yours. Are you going to be another one of those attacked companies? Or are you ready to experience a radical new cybersecurity solution? Find out why the Red Sox chose Centripetal at www.centripetal.ai.
Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women,
taking the lives of 1 in 3.
That's more than all forms of cancer combined.
For too long, heart disease and stroke have taken the lives of the women we love.
But we're not giving up.
because we have something better.
Stronger, more powerful.
We have each other.
When we come together and go red,
the more power we have against our greatest health threat.
Visit goredforwomen.org today to learn more.
Recent reports suggest that a record 4.1 million Americans may retire this year alone. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and if you're one of them, you'll want to have a retirement plan in place that focuses on several objectives. When to actually retire is a very important one to consider. Retiring early while giving you more time to enjoy life after work also means you'll need your money to last longer. Retiring later may not give you as much time to enjoy life's pleasures, but you'll have more time to save money. It's important for your retirement plan to strike a reasonable balance, and our new guide may help. It's called A Day in the Life of a Retiree, and it's yours free by calling 800-393-4001. The guide discusses these issues and more, so please call 800-393-4001. Once again, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Find daily interviews and full shows of the Financial Exchange on our YouTube page. Like us on YouTube and get caught up on anything and everything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
This segment of the Financial Exchange is brought to you in part by the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Tourism. The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John. Enjoy perfect weather, world-class dining, incredible beaches, and a vibrant nightlife. Head to visitusvi.com and book your trip today. No passport is needed and there's no money to exchange. Take your next vacation to America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Go to visitusvi.com to book your trip. That's visitusvi.com.
Paul, what do you have for me for Stack Roulette?
Chipotle is first in line on drive-thrus. Why its lanes are smarter and faster. Chipotle was in the news very much yesterday, where the news came out that their CEO, Brian Niccol, will be taking over Starbucks and departing from his lead position at Chipotle. He had been with the company since 2018 and led a significant turnaround of the company to tremendous success over the last 5 or 6 years. The story that I'm speaking about here is Chipotle is basically unrolled not a drive-through setup, but basically a drive-through pickup at their location. So if you were ordering a Chipotle bowl, if you were to do that in a drive-through line, it would take quite a while to assemble all that because each of us have different items that we're going to put in it. So rather than waiting in line for a long time to have a bowl assembled, you can come up to a drive-through and pick up that order that you ordered previously on the online app, paying for it ahead of time. They are not the only company doing this. Taco Bell, I point this out because I know Chuck is a big fan, has a concept store in Minneapolis called Taco Bell Defy, where they have a 2-story building that has 4 drive-through lanes. 3 of them are designated for digital pickups, and they have a vertical lift that transports food from the 2nd story of the building down to the 1st floor to deliver out the items to those people in that digital pickup line. So the focus with these companies is less square footage, not as much in-store presence, but allowing for people to come up and just pick up their items rather than staggering through that traditional drive-through line.
Why is it 2 stories? Why do you have to make the food above and then send it down?
That's just it being cool and being Taco Bell Defy. They're defying gravity by starting up higher with a 2nd floor kitchen.
You know what they need to bring back? Do you remember at the banks they used to have those pneumatic tubes that you would send messages? That's how they need to send the Chipotle burritos.
That would be awesome. Or like the stocks, which it predates us, but you would send the order through the same sort of tubing mechanism.
Yeah. I'm feeling that is kind of the vibe that I'd like to have at a drive-through. So if they're listening out there, I'd like to see that. I think it would be kind of nice. I guess the counterpoint to it is, you got to slow it down before it lands.
Oh, yeah.
You can't just shoot a burrito through the tube and have it splat at the end. So I guess that's
going to shatter windows.
That's what. Well, no, it's not shooting out to the car at you. It stops.
Better catch it.
No, it stops in the thing, and then you raise the little lever and pull it out at that point.
It's not like at a baseball game where they shoot the hot dog gun out into the crowd.
It's not a T-shirt cannon?
It's a hot dog gun?
I saw the Philly Fanatic has one.
Oh, that's kind of fun.
I had never heard of it until he said it, and I very confused.
You don't want to know the source of that. It's from one of my kids' YouTube shows, but the Phillies Fanatic had a hot dog launching gun that he shot hot dogs out into the crowd. Let me just make sure that is.
As long as we're talking sports and food, I'd like to discuss Will Levis, who is the Titans quarterback. And yesterday, he unveiled a sponsorship. And the sponsorship is unique. He has come out with a cologne that is inspired by mayonnaise. And it sounds gross. Like, if we're being honest, like, it sounds kind of gross. It does say that it has 6 fragrance notes for Will Levis number 8. Tart lemon, mayonnaise accord, parsley, coffee undertones, musk, and creamy vanilla. Now, I'm not really a cologne wearer myself. It's not really something that I do. If there were one thing that would convince me really not to wear cologne, it would be a mayonnaise scented cologne. It just, I can't get there. Now Levis, the joke and what, not really a joke, like the real thing is he apparently
he's
loves
obsessed
mayonnaise.
with mayonnaise, so much so that he puts in his coffee. Yes, you heard that right. He puts mayonnaise into his coffee.
His first sponsorship as a rookie was Hellman's Mayonnaise, and that's who's collaborating with him on this in order to come out with it.
It's sold out, which
But how many did they make? 3?
Were there 8 just being offered, and people just wanted it for the joke?
It feels like this is something that's going to end up as kind of this weird, not a collector's item.
This
but
is the worst version of Flutie Flakes ever.
Yeah.
What do you think happens in like 10,000 years when aliens finally come to Earth and they find a bottle of this stuff? They're gonna be like, all the wealth and everything that you had, all the computing power you had, all the genius of humanity, and you decided to do this? You know what? This is actually fantastic. I've changed my mind in a span of 30 seconds.
That was a quick pivot.
I've changed my mind in 30 seconds.
You excited for the follow-up?
Well,
tartar sauce.
Well, that's a crossover with the Relish guys, right? That's more of kind of, it's like when they had 2 shows that would cross over on TV. Here's what is great about this actually is there is no reason to do this, and if we're being honest, real art is all about expressing yourself in whatever way you feel comfortable. And if that is, hey, you're making a mayonnaise-scented cologne, I don't know, it's not for me, but we're talking about it, right?
Yeah, it's noteworthy. It got a lot of pickup on different news sites. For a quarterback, to be fair, who is very mediocre at this point. Not
very
to say
unproven.
Easy.
I know, Ben has some family time. But he's coming off a rookie season. It's not as if this is Patrick Mahomes. Let's just put it that way. And maybe he could become the next Patrick Mahomes.
The more problematic thing, in my opinion, is the mayonnaise that he chose, because Hellman's not at the top of my list.
What would you have gone with for your collaboration?
I'm certainly the most recognizable. I'm a Cane's guy through and through.
Okay. It's certainly the most. They probably have the deepest pockets.
They might. But that's more problematic to me than anything else, in my opinion. We're going to take a quick break for the entire rest of the day here, but the Dow is up 214 points, the S&P is up 24, and the NASDAQ is up 55. Have a great rest of the day. We'll see you tomorrow on the Financial Exchange.